Oh my god, good morning. How are you? Don't answer that, I don't care. We're talking about autism and stuff today, boys. Can you believe it? Another day just talking about autism and stuff. We're getting a little sciencey today, boys. Now, don't get too stressy. Don't get too... This is my shit, okay? But no, you know what else is my shit? Teaching. Especially teaching like science. So not only is science and the human body one of my special interests, so I'm really excited, but I also hope that you can hold on and I hope to explain things as best as I can. Some of these things are a little bit over my head, and so I'm not going to go into too much detail about those things, but I'll tell you what it is and why it's over my head. And today we're talking about the connectivity theory of autism and a little bit more of the biochemistry behind an autistic person. But before we keep going, I do need to ask you guys to subscribe. I was looking at my analytics and it said 40% of my watchers subscribe to me. So I have to ask now. I have to ask you, can you subscribe? Maybe like the video. If you've watched 4 videos, if you watch 3 and you're like, I don't know, like, okay. But if you've watched 4 of my videos, come on. I have a free PDF down below that is 60 ways that you can accommodate an autistic person. Give that a little download as a first step. And if you like this, if you like me, if you like the things I do, you can go and support me on Patreon always. Before we keep going, disclaimer. I should write a script and then have this as a thing and say it every time. I feel like that would be nice for everyone's echolalia, maybe that'd be nice for me too. I, Paige Layle, am one human autistic person. I am no one special. I do not have any degrees. I have done no research myself. I am looking at things on the internet, which anyone can do. This is just the time that I have taken on doing it. I did go to school for kinesiology, but I didn't finish my undergrad. I dropped out in 2nd year. So anatomy has been a special interest of mine since I was a kid. The body's so cool. And when I learned about the neurology of autism, I'm like, oh, doesn't that make sense? Because what is autism? Like the idea of autism. We know all the traits and what someone sees, but what's going on inside? What actually makes those things happen? What are the patterns that are going on in autistic people? Autism, super complex. So many avenues within autism to look at and learn about. Every autistic person is so different. And it's not just like one factor. Like, oh, that's it. You know, it's so many. I'm not going into every single detail because also we would be here forever because there's so many specifics we could get into. Take this as kind of like a connectivity theory 101. And if you're super interested in this, then maybe you can go and do your own research. So I actually am going to be reading from a little book a little bit. This resource is called But Everyone Feels This Way. It's a book actually. It was written by Paige Layle. And in this book, Paige talks about a little bit more about the connectivity theory and provides a little metaphor that I really like to use when talking about it that I never saw anyone say before me. I'm pretty sure I made it up. Like, I don't know if anyone else uses it. I don't know if anyone else says this or like has ever explained it like this. I've never seen anyone else do it. But I'm like, hey, I think it's actually not too bad. And I coin it. Oh, I coined it. So getting a little bit into neuroscience. Your human body, right? Human body vessel, okay? It's really just like a meat suit that holds your inner jellyfish blob that is you. That jellyfish blob being your nervous system. That's what does all of this stuff. That's what controls everything. The rest of your body is just like instruments for the nervous system to use. The nervous system tells the muscles to contract. The reason why the muscles can do that is because they're attached to the bones at just the right spot so that we can like move our joints and stuff. Your nervous system connects your body to you. Your nervous system is like your inner world, and then in the body, this is like how you experience your nervous system in relation to the outer world. So when I say anything neuro, that just means nervous system. That could mean brain, that could mean spinal cord. It just means nervous system. Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So by nomenclature, the brain developed, or like the neurology developed differently in a way that like it doesn't usually. I mean, disorder kind of says that in a way that like it shouldn't, which I don't agree with. Neurodiversity is very natural. As like a general whole in the science community, there are a lot of biological factors and markers that can be used to indicate if a person is autistic. We know that it's from your genetics, it's in your genes. It's not just one gene, there's like a whole whack that could be expressed differently. And here's the thing too with your genes is that you got your genes, but then you got your genes, which is really how your genes are expressed over time and how that changes. You got a whole lot of genes, you got a whole lot of chromosomes. If we took them and like lined them back to back, pretty sure they would wrap around the earth like 2.5, 3 times. Looks like twice the size of the solar system. In one cell, it would be 2 meters. That's already taller than me. Your parents passed off like very specific genes to you. Now, depending on what you end up doing with your life, depending on your habits, who you are as a person, you're going to be exposed to different things that are going to impact. For example, someone's genetic makeup can mean that they are like very highly predisposed to having different types of cancers, for having heart disease. But if this person doesn't smoke, regularly exercises, and is conscious about taking good care of their vessel, the likelihood of those genes being expressed decreases with the person's healthy habits. This does not always happen though. Unfortunately, people that never smoke a day in their life still get lung cancer. But your genes are your genes. We can't change them. We can't edit them. You got the same genes coded in every single cell of your body. So you can't replace them in every single cell. So as I explain the connectivity theory and how the brain of an autistic person develops, it's important to note that when an autistic person is born, they are born autistic. Of course, their brain isn't the same and it hasn't fully developed, but they are already genetically ready to be autistic. Why? It's in the genes. Autism isn't caused by anything. Nothing that I say is going to be me being like, this causes autism. It's all the opposite, actually. It's all autism causes this. Our brain, 3 pounds of goodness. That's where we store all of our info. Now, different info does go to different parts of the brain physically. The brain has special regions, special parts where information is sorted and neural activity is transported to and from. You've got your sensory neurons that are gathering intel from the environment and sending it up to the brain. And then you've got the motor neuron system going from the brain out to the environment, reacting to the environment. That's what the nervous system is. A bunch of neurons. There are more cells too. Base knowledge, neurons. So it's a kind of cell, just like a heart cell or a stomach cell, a skin cell. There's a neuron. It's a neural cell. Looks funny, looks kind of cute. There's 2 parts of a neuron, 2 ends that we need to think about or remember. There's one end which has the nucleus of the cell and it's like branching out. That's like the head of the neuron. The head of the neuron is holding out its little fingies and it's like waiting to grab on to some whatever chemical is coming through. It's like, all right, latch on to me. And then from the head, travels down like a little tail looking thing and then diverges into a few little tails, little bums. And that is where the chemicals come out of the cell. In order to make any part of you do something, the cells all have to work together and send the signal through each other to get there. And they have to do it pretty quickly, especially if you think about pathways that don't actually go all the way to your brain. There are some pathways that just hit our spinal cord and we have an instant reactive response. It's like automatic. Because when I was in school, I learned that one of the reactive things was putting your hand on a stove. Apparently, you're going to take it off before the information gets to your brain. Like, it's just your spinal cord tells you to take it off. I don't know if that happens for me, because for me, like, my hand will be on something hot for like seconds, and it takes me, I almost feel like I can feel the slow process. I always see that I'm hurt before I feel it, and I'm like, oh frig, and then it like, I can feel like the information coming, and then I can feel it going, and I just feel the pain flood my body. Starting from when you're in the womb and then you're born and up until like 8 months to a year, the brain is really developing. So the brain is making a lot of neurons. It's having like rapid growth. Boom, boom, boom. We don't know what this kid's gonna need. We're just growing. There's no other time more significant in a person's life for like their growing brain than that time of their life. Then we hit 2 years old. Terrible twos, first Saturn return. It's a big deal for kids. You know, you become self-aware. Holy crap, I'm a person, I exist, I have thoughts and feelings. The brain starts going through a process. The brain just like grew wildly, okay? It's like a big hedge, and the hedge just like, we just let it grow because it needed to grow. It was growing time. Now we're looking at this hedge and we're like, okay, see, we don't need all these branches. This branch isn't doing anything. Look how weak this branch is. Poop. And then the cells get pruned. Literally, it's called synaptic pruning. One neuron has multiple synapses, right? Multiple little fingies that are like reaching out to the other ones. They're like, touch me. They're like, I'm not touching you. Synaptic pruning happens because not all of the synapses are necessary. You gotta make the hedge look okay. And so this isn't just genetic, how synaptic pruning happens. This also very much has to do with what that 2-year-old child is involved in. How enriched are they? Because what the child is doing, those synapses are the ones that get stronger. Stuff that the child's not doing, those are the synapses that get pruned away. So like a 2-year-old who reads and is read to and has attentive, emotionally available parents and is appropriately fed and dressed and safe is going to have way different synaptic pruning to a 2-year-old who is neglected, who isn't provided enrichment, who isn't spoken to like a person or respected. Very different pathways are being learned in the different brains. So the thing with autistic people is overall, in general, we have more synapses. We have less pruning happening. We've got like way more branches in our hedge. We overall have more chemical stuff going on in our brain. We've got more synapses, we've got more neurons talking to each other than neurotypical allistic people do. What that means is actually very different for each autistic person. Like, could be drastically different. Like, could be oppositely different. The reason why autistic people have the same similarities that we do are simply because of this. This is where I'm taking the example from this book that this person wrote. What's it called? Freaking different sections of the brain communicate with each other. The different sides of the brain communicate with each other. There is specialization, but there is localization. So as a gardener, why do you prune anything? Why are you going to prune a hedge? Why do you prune a plant? To streamline growth, to have the plant go stronger and straighter instead of have energy being disposed to so many different places that each of those branches just like don't develop as strongly as one would if we just cut all those other branches. That's not even the metaphor that's in my book, or I mean this book. Left side of the brain, right side of the brain. I don't know any Bo Burnham fans. I am the left brain. This is an overgeneralization as well. Obviously, it does much more stuff. The left hemisphere of the brain is where we learn language. It's where we do our writing. That's like the analytical side of the brain. Then the right side of the brain is our more creative, emotional, feely side of the brain. Frontal lobe. Frontal lobe doesn't really develop until you're 25. Frontal lobe handles your impulse control. Frontal lobe makes like executive decisions, higher level thinking. Frontal lobe, it's the last thing to develop. It takes the longest to develop. Occipital lobe, take a jab. Occipital ideas. So we have an occipital bone also. Back of our head here, that's where the occipital lobe of our brain is. Why? So it can be close to our eyeballs, because that's where we process what we see, the information that we see. Then of course we can get like deeper into the brain. The deeper though we get into our brain, the less we talk about thinking and cognition, and the more we talk about survival and what keeps the body alive and functioning. We're really specifically talking about the white matter in the brain, so that is the cerebral cortex, cerebral, like all the upper, the thinking, the feeling, the what makes us human. The deepest inside of our brain, the midbrain, takes care of our breathing and making sure that our heart beats. It makes sure that we have a blood pressure. We go to sleep and we eat food. Neuron pruning in allistic brains takes the neural path and makes it into a highway. A really strong, fast connection that can go from A to B really quickly. We do it a lot. Look at these connections. It's strong. Now in autistic brains, we don't have that many highway connections, but we do have a lot of small towns. We've got like a concentrated group of people all here. They live here, they eat here. We got paved roads, got dirt roads, but we got paved roads, got some potholes. But so when it comes to doing a task that requires one part of the brain only, we've got a lot of neural activity in concentrated bits. So that's why we're usually good at certain concentrated things. This is one of the reasons why we are hypersensitive to a lot of senses. Pattern recognition, listing, memorization, counting, that's all one part of the brain. Social scenarios, being in public and talking to another person, multiple areas of the brain working together. And from there, you can kind of start to understand, even like visually, how autism just like makes sense. Now, everyone's neural connections are very different, but in general, we have a lot more electrical synapses in our brain. That's why a lot of autistic people too also have epilepsy or have seizures. Side story, but I literally knew this years ago. I thought it years ago, and then it was confirmed by me when I thought myself into a seizure. You autistic people, have you ever felt like you're magic? All my life, I'm like, my body's different. I'm a little bit different from everyone, but I know I'm autistic. But I'm like, my body's a little different. I can think stuff, and then my body does it. The first time trying an edible, I thought I was doing an appropriate amount compared to like my other friends were eating like 3 to 6 of these cookie things. I had like half of one and it was still too much. My endocannabinoid system said, no, we can't do this. And I had a seizure. Went to the hospital because my friends are great, and my father had a seizure a few years prior. So that's why my friends were like, we need to call 911. And it was awful. And it was so awful. It was so embarrassing. I'm 18. And the psychiatrist came and talked to me after. And the psychiatrist was like, hello? And she's like, hello. You did not have a lot of weed in your system at all. Like, not even enough that you should be high. I think it's like, you're autistic, dude. Makes sense. Weed, I don't know, you got freaked out or something. And I was like, oh shit, really? Yeah. Alrighty. Did you know that statistically, over 50% of autistic people are also diagnosed with ADHD? I had to mention that first because it does make sense as to why the development of autism would also make someone potentially susceptible to ADHD as well. Like, if you have so many neurons and so many synapses, and we know autistic people are taking in way more information than everyone else at rest. At rest, it's like more than 40% more or something. We've got a lot going on. I hear, see, feel everything. And I've been learning about synesthesia lately. I think I'm saying it right, guys. It scares me. The word scares me. But I'm like, oh, I definitely have that, which is when one cognitive pathway is triggered and then it triggers another one. Apparently, there are over 80 types of synesthesia, and I was looking at like 3 of them and I'm like, oh, I have all those, didn't know that. So for example, misophonia is a type of synesthesia where a sound, you feel it and it feels like bad, like it feels not okay in the body. Or like when someone else gets hurt, I physically feel it. I have to look away because I physically feel whatever I see. Being autistic neurologically causes some things. There's like no autistic person who's just autistic. The average comorbidity rate of an autistic person is 5, as well as being autistic. Considering what they classify disorders, I probably have 37, just words that describe my inner experience, but they're also complex and interwoven, and they don't have a box. I'm autistic, my brain is just meshed. There's mental and cognitive disorders and like personality disorders, psychiatric DSM-5 diagnoses like anxiety, depression, any kind of personality disorder, borderline, narcissistic, antisocial, histrionic. ADHD, like I said, over half. That's documented. So anxiety and depression are like a given. OCD, PTSD, there's so much that we classify and like it's a disorder. Like, okay, great, like people have this generalized experience that results in X disorder that we all share. But like, why? Most people have trauma. Like most people probably, I'm literally overgeneralizing. No one's ever had a perfect life ever and been like not traumatized and been not oppressed and been not put down in some way. No one had a perfect childhood. That's okay. I can guarantee you that everyone watching reacts a way to a trigger that they have from childhood trauma. Even those who have been working at it for a long time. I still find myself having symptoms of CPTSD, even though I've been working at it, for a long time. Something that I find really interesting is that autistic people also often obtain comorbid disorders over time that have more of a pathophysiology. Autistic people are way more likely to get dementia. Alzheimer's, a form of dementia. This was like years ago when I heard this, and I was like, oh my freaking god. And then it just really connected to in my family, like, oh, who has dementia? Oh, I've always had a fear that I'm gonna get dementia. I've always had like a feeling in my brain that it's eating away and deteriorating and I'm gonna get dementia. And then hearing that, I'm like, what the fuck? And it just kind of like set the idea in my head personally that there must be so much wear and tear going on in my brain that over time I just lose it. Like over time it just works too hard. Because why just autistic people? Or not just autistic people, but why way more likely? Like what makes us way more likely? Well, the more you are autistic, the longer you are autistic, and the longer you are stressed, harder it is on your nervous system. Some of the genes involved in autism are also responsible for the structure and the functions of your connective tissue. Whoa. And your connective tissue does so much. Sorry, I moved my drink out of the way. I was drinking it and then I'm like, okay, they did not advertise this video, but I am drinking it. This flavor is really good, actually. I don't care. People are like, it's bad for you. Like, I have eaten a lot of Big Macs in my life. I'll drink this. It's fine. I drink white Monster Energies. It's fine. So you may think that in your organs in here, you just got like sloshing around in there, but they're not. If you were to like, maybe don't imagine this. If you were to like and look under there and look in you, all of your organs are held together by all of this like connective tissue. It's all connected. Like it's like saran wrap all over all of your organs and on the inside of your cavity where they can like stick to the sides and stick to each other and all kind of stick together, support each other. It's all just like this tissue. There are a bunch of different kinds of connective tissues. Adipose tissue, that's your fat. Bone is a connective tissue. You also have cartilage. You have dense fibrous connective tissue. So that makes like the thick rope-like stuff like your tendons and your ligaments. You've got loose connective tissue, which is anywhere under you have epithelial cells or skin like that. It's what's holding your skin on together. You've got elastic connective tissue. Your larynx also has elastic cartilage. And then the last one is blood. Blood is also considered connective tissue. Like not your blood vessels, not the system of the heart, but the blood itself, the blood. Isn't that wild that that part is also in the same part like that autism is? So like every autistic person I know, it's not like a thing that this is going to be everybody, but it's super common for autistic people to have other physical props. Like for me, one thing, I'm always holding my right shoulder up more than my left. And so now my right trapezius muscle is actually bigger than my left one. Can you see it? I've been working on it for a bit, so it's not as noticeable as it once was, but geez Louise, I found out like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was actually tremendous. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's because it's really common that if you're autistic, if you're ADHD, that you're not using and you're not engaging the proper muscles in your body. There are some muscles that are really good at boom, making you like go, making you power, fast twitch muscle fibers. And so you're talking about your glutes, your quads, biceps, your shoulder, then there are a lot of muscles that aren't for power, but they are just for stability, holding you up. Tiny muscles. You've got a lot of long, slow twitch muscle fibers in the long muscles that hold us up. Our posture on our back connects our neck, that holds our neck up. There are muscles in our pelvis, small muscles around our hips. Even like we got like muscles in your face and muscles all in your head and in your face. Those muscles are not meant to be heavily used. But a lot of the time what can happen to a lot of people, but especially people that are autistic, we use the small ones like more than we use the big ones. And what does that do? Causes pain. Causes chronic pain too if you're doing it a lot. Like, let me just look to the side. So if I'm holding myself up with the proper muscles, I'm being conscious of like my shoulders and the tension in my neck. I'm holding myself up. This is conscious though, okay? This isn't natural for me. This doesn't feel natural for me. I wouldn't ever be like this, except for right now because you're looking at me sideways. I have horrid posture. I'm trying to get better. But look at this. I'm like this 90% of the time. I remember someone was like, "Can you stand up straight? I wonder like how you'd look if you stood up straight." And she like pushed me back. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty straight right now. I'm really straight right now. The hunch, using my small muscles, not engaging anything in my core. And then also a lot of autistic people too use their mouth differently, their neck differently, their chin, their jaw differently, and that can cause like a bunch of things, just talking and moving your mouth and chewing, and also change the form. Like we are more likely to be mouth breathers. And if you are a mouth breather, like you're using different parts, so your body does that. Like your body's like, okay, I guess we're gonna use different parts. Your gait, so like that's how you walk. Because of those muscles, like which ones are you using? Oh, sorry, I skipped a little bit ahead. People may go, muscles are not a connective tissue. What are you saying? Tendons are a connective tissue. So tendons are what connect the muscle to the bone. Bones are also a connective tissue. Blood is needed for muscles to do things, also a connective tissue. The muscle is encased in connective tissue. So there's connective tissue all over the place. And we got disorders of that. So what does that also mean like for those parts? Anyone here autistic and have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is so wild. I learned about years ago, literally from Evie Oddly on RuPaul's Drag Race. But EDS is a connective tissue disorder. Now, okay, I didn't write this down and I don't have the definition, but your cartilage like just gets stringy and doesn't hold structure as well, and your skin gets way more wrinkly because the cartilage doesn't just, you become hypermobile. Your joints move in ways they shouldn't move. Your body isn't as like structurally supported, and it can be very painful. It can limit a lot of mobility, and it's not reversible. It just gets worse and worse. Just so much fun. So it's most common that the effects of EDS start being noticeable and start developing in person's 20s, 30s. I'm 23. This has been the year. 23 is the year that I'm starting to feel my body deteriorating badly. I've been feeling some things for a few years, but this year my joints hurt and they crish, crash, crack-a-lack, and smushy all the time. My rib, literally, as I sit, like, sometimes it pops, like, in and out of place. I have to, like, pop it in. Oh, I've always had, like, weird joint things. My father, since I've known him, has had arthritis. Like, and I knew him when he was 27. One thing that I do have is POTS, P-O-T-S, which stands for Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome. I took medical terminology in university. Let me break it down. Postural has to do with your posture. Orthostatic means that you're standing upright. We can even break down like way more. Tachycardia basically means that your heart rate is, they typically say like above 100 beats per minute is like the blanket line for tachycardia. Means like fast heart rate. And then syndrome just means, you know, it's not ideal. POTS is a poor ability to regulate the location of blood in relation to the body moving positions, in particular going from like a laying down to a standing up position. In most people, your body's constantly regulating. It's noticing things. It's going, we want homeostasis. We got to regulate things in ways. My body, not so much, apparently. Stands up because gravity, blood automatically goes to the leg. But their legs notice this. They feel it. They, whoa, can't have all the blood here. The brain needs blood. Heart needs blood. We got to make sure it gets enough blood. So what that means, the blood tubes, I hate, I don't know what it is I have about like blood tubes. I hate like the idea that blood comes in like a tubes of blood in my body. Like I hate it. I hate it. So anyway, they're supposed to get smaller when you stand, the ones in your legs, so that blood doesn't pool in your legs and then not go to your head. Because that's what happens in my case. That's what happens when you have POTS, is your blood pools in your legs and it doesn't go to your head. That means that I have to manually, I feel like that's such a autism thing too, just like a part of autism is having to manually do things yourself that so many other people just do automatically. Here's another one, my fucking blood can't regulate, like swagged out. Exercise so hard. Why am I lightheaded? When I was teaching the little kids, man, and I'd go from like squatting to standing and squatting to standing, every time I stood up I was like, that's just in general too, but then I was so sweaty, unbelievably sweaty, and I'm like, it's got to be in relation to POTS because that's wild. I dance all day, my feet and my legs are purple and blue. You gotta wear compression socks, you know, sit down a lot. Eating salty foods can help. Drinking a lot of water, increasing your blood volume. There are medications that can help with POTS, which I'm so interested in getting, especially like being a dancer and a dance teacher. Holy crap, man, it's freaking hard. And now, especially being a gardener, every time I stand up, like I'm always bending over for my garden, but then Mace drops her ball and I want to play with her. So then I get up to kick her ball, but I get up and then for like 10 seconds, I'm going to pass out 200 times a day because I love being out there looking at the garden. And I've always wondered, you know, my whole life, why I've had such a high heart rate and low blood pressure. I've always been pretty physically active and physically fit. Like I think like I've been going to the gym for a decade. I'm not saying if you go to the gym you're healthy. I've never been good at sports or into sports, and so that was my physical activity, was the gym. Dancing also. I remember the first time I did my VO2 max. Your VO2 max is like the volume of oxygen that your lungs can take and use in your body. So it comes at like a liters per minute, I think. So like the average person, the average like man is using like somewhere between 40 and 50 liters a minute. Average woman, 35, 40, you know, just because size differences and whatever. Athletes, and especially endurance athletes, are going to have a much higher VO2 max, a much more efficient system of using oxygen in their body because they've trained it. Mine was like 31. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, do you smoke? No. Years later, I was like, test me again, put me on the machine, let's go. And I got like 35. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I thought I was doing okay. I was on a medication for adult acne. I think I was like 18, 19. And it was the same medication that my grandmother took for hypertension. And that's why I was, oh my God, that's why I'm passing out now. It is lowering my blood pressure, Mary. Oh, my fucking rib. The rib thing is new. My heart rate is the lowest it's ever been. It usually rests somewhere in the high 80s, low 90s, which is still pretty high. And my blood pressure is somewhere in the 90s over somewhere in the 60s, which is pretty low. When I stand up, my heart rate will go like over 150 because my heart's like, oh my God, we need to have more blood. There's no blood in the head anymore. Quick. Now, can I say, I had a really hard time like researching for this because a lot of articles and a lot of like the science community, I just don't like how they talk about autism and how they talk about autistic people. And for some of them, not all, but for, a good chunk, it's about identifying the thing that went wrong so we can fix it, so we can make it not go wrong. And that's not my vibe. That's so fucking complicated. But this education of myself and the way I work, knowing these things are normal, knowing that they're expected, knowing that I'm not crazy. This book is such a great title, but everyone feels this way because a lot of us were, gaslit by others that are probably a little bit like us who were also gaslit, but still, we were gaslit nonetheless, that what we're feeling isn't real. I love talking about this though, specifically too for parents who have autistic kids, so you guys know what's going on. Knowledge is power. There's definitely some people that have some ideas that I don't agree with. I personally want to know how autism works. Okay, can I be honest? Let me be honest. The longer I'm in the autism space, I don't know if you saw my video from last week where I talk about like I'm getting less angry and I'm more sympathetic and more accepting. I'm learning, I'm getting into some territory of some stuff that I'm like, wait, I was afraid of this. And whereas like past Paige was like, that canceled, don't learn about it. Present Paige, oh, I love the letter P, is like, well, learn about it. Learn about why people think that way and where it comes from, and learn about the validity in it. I just love understanding. I think that's like a pretty, that's like an autism thing. I don't want to cure autism. That's not my goal. My goal is autism exists. I want to learn as much as I can about it, and as much as I can about the autistic person specifically that I'm dealing with or talking to, so then we can work toward providing that autistic person with the best opportunities for them, creating a space that is safest for them to feel safest, to thrive as best as possible. The more you know, the better you can help, the more specific you can accommodate, the more specialized you are in a thing. Because I don't think that autistic people should have to struggle. I don't think autistic people deserve to struggle. I think that learning about autism and sharing what we know and what we learn about autism is important for more reasons than just understanding. For people to know that there are people researching this stuff. You could too one day if you wanted to. Be part of these researches. At a lot of universities, they'd even like pay you for being a part of research stuff that they're doing. I did so many things like that. I did so many in my first year. I'm a part of so many studies, man. My skin is progressively, I just looked in the monitor, is progressively getting redder because I'm pretty sure my AC is broken. It's been running like non-stop, but it's not getting any cooler in this house. It's just getting warmer. So, okay, anyway, what should I talk about next week? Join my Patreon and let me know. If you like this video, you could like this video. If you like me, you could frickin' subscribe. If you hate me, well, you ain't me. Okay, love you. Peace out, Girl Scout. Sing it with her. Take it away, Paige. This is the end of the video song. This video is to tell you the video's done. If you're hearing this, it's because the video's done. Go watch another one. Boop, boop. Have a good day. Love you so much. Bye.